After a year's absence, the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York and the iconic Watkins Glen International welcomes back the cars and stars of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, and it is time to go qualifying for the next two rounds of the season-long championship. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. We have Amanda Busick patrolling the pit lane for us. Two qualifying sessions coming your way. The first will set the grid for race one of the weekend, coming up later on this afternoon. The second qualifying session will set the grid for race two tomorrow. Plenty to chew on, Calvin, and before we do so, let's head down to Amanda down in the pits. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. And the guy with the task of setting the qualifying grid for race number one is right behind me, Fred Portad. The Porsche has looked strong here this weekend already in practice, but with Fred, I talked to him prior to this session here. Hasn't been here in about 3 or 4 years, so he feels a little rusty getting back into the groove here at Watkins Glen. They did some testing here, only a half day. Fred said he needed a little more time in the car, but hopefully we'll get that here this morning. The Wright Porsche does lead the points in the Pro-Am, and they look to extend that here this weekend.
Thank you, Amanda, and it's been a really strong weekend thus far. A couple of practice sessions yesterday, and this car has featured at the top of the time charts, Calvin. Jan Halen in particular, very fast, but we've seen all season long Fred Portad, when it's his turn, he holds his own.
Yeah, he definitely steps up to the plate when it's time to do so, but these are very tricky conditions that we're seeing here this morning for qualifying. Essentially a wet racetrack when we got here first thing. It's drying out rapidly, but I think certainly for this first sector of qualifying is going to be a damp racetrack in certain areas. So that's where it's difficult, finding that limit, feeling the grip, and we have the lower graded drivers who will do the qualifying chores here straight up this morning. So it'll really put a lot of a challenge on their shoulders here today to get it right and not make that critical error. As you can see the racetrack there to the right side, still very wet. The curbs are going to be wet, so if you run a little bit wide, easy to go for a ride here.
And we already saw Pirelli GT4 America qualifying this morning, and these conditions caught out more than one driver in those two qualifying sessions this morning as well. And I think all of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS teams, were watching that session closely, planning how they're going to approach qualifying here based on how the cars that went out and basically scouted out the track this morning fared. And in some cases, as mentioned, it wasn't a very good morning.
It wasn't, and if you have an issue in this first session, there's not much time to get anything sorted out and fixed up for the second run. So certainly a big challenge here to identify where the limit is, not push it too far. Do you go a little bit conservative? Does anyone wait? Let the track dry out for 5 minutes, but then if it's cut short, you're running out of time. So a lot of factors here. I think the key is to get out, generate a little bit of tire temp. They're obviously getting tires straight out of the tire warmers and ovens here this morning. That's why you see the cars up on the stands, waiting until that last possible moment to equip the cars with the Pirelli P0s and get ready for qualifying. But big challenge, as I said, and it can really affect your whole weekend because being on the back foot, coming from the back of the grid is not easy with these GT3 cars, even though I feel here at Watkins Glen with the layout of the circuit, there are some really good overtaking opportunities here in race conditions.
Let's talk about the layout. 3.37 miles, 11 turns, an iconic circuit with so many iconic names, talking about the inner loop or the bus stop, the outer loop. You've got the boot and all of the associated parts, that high-speed S's section. This track's got a little bit of everything and a rich history to go along with it.
It does. Drivers love coming here. They resurfaced it a few years ago, and the amount of grip that it provides is really challenging to step up to that threshold. You can just keep pushing and pushing these cars. It still has to have good balance in the race car to achieve the lap time that you're looking for, but the grip levels are insane here with these GT3 cars, the amount of downforce that they have. So it's known as being super fast, really super smooth, and talking to some of the drivers this weekend, they said it's remarkable. Of all of the circuits that have been repaved here in recent years, that this one up in this neck of the woods with the harsh winters that you get here still remains super smooth and gives it that high grip level that the drivers love.
2015 was that repave, and think about all of the harsh upstate New York winters that the surface has been through. I did the track walk back on Thursday, and it's amazing. There's no patches, no cracks, no bumps. It's still as smooth as it was before, and the drivers have said it's retained much of that grip from the initial repave, and it adds to the challenge. It's a physical track for that reason. The G loads are incredibly high.
They really are, and talking to some of the drivers who competed here earlier this year, when you do a test session here, you typically go back home and get back to the gym because you realize your neck is in for a pounding here as we see Michael Dinan up on the wheel here early. That move around, I think that's Aaron Vogel there, starting this qualifying session, but this BMW should be pretty good here. You know, looking at the strengths of this BMW, obviously there's a lot of straightaway speed. And they're really starting to find their feet, coming off a big win at Road America. And they've got Jay O'Connell engineering this car now. He's been on for a couple of events, and that's starting to show some benefits as well. They switched engines out before Road America, found that they're a little bit down on their top line speed, even though it's still very competitive. So I think they're finding their sweet spot right now. Michael Dinan jumping up from a double championship year last year in GT4. He certainly adapted very quickly to these GT3 cars, but I think right now with the amount of testing they're done, with, you know, 4 race weekends under our belt already, I think this is time.
And with Robbie Foley, his co-driver, and this team, they've already run 2 races here at this track with this car, the same M6, in another championship. They won one of them. So they are quite confident and comfortable with this platform at this track. The big difference is the Pirelli tire, and that does change the way that you approach the setup to some degree, but they're coming in with a ton of confidence with their first win of the season in race 2 of the weekend. In dramatic fashion, it's worth noting, the last time out at Road America, and it seems like this team is just getting stronger as the year progresses.
They are, and I think with that correlation, yes, the setups between the Pirelli tire and the other tires that they use in a different championship are quite extreme. But you can still correlate that. It's like if you need 25% more spring rate or something, at one racetrack, you can look at your notes from WATKINS GLEN running the different tire and then put that on the setup to start the weekend. So they should be rolling off the truck relatively quickly. They're up in the top 3 or 4 spots in both of the practice sessions here yesterday.
14 cars on the grid this weekend. Inception Racing opted to skip this one, and no George Kurtz and Colin Brown from the DXDT Racing stable. George had the crash at Road America.
Woo. Right there, baby.
That was it. Look at the hands flashing inside the cockpit. That's where we saw a number of issues in the GT4 qualifying earlier. A couple of cars went off and made some wall contact right there in that section of the racetrack. But that going back to the George Kurtz story, the crash there meant that they could not race that weekend. That effectively took George out of the championship. And between that and the fact that he's got a lot going on with CrowdStrike, they're joining the NASDAQ 100 index coming up next week. He's going to be ringing the opening bell at the NASDAQ, and all the different commitments that he has. They're going to put some of their racing on hold for a little bit and regroup, come back with a big program for the Indianapolis 8-hour to close out the season. What'd you make of that save there, Calvin?
He did a great job. I mean, talk about commitment. He was committed there. And I think the key is, you know, with these damp track conditions, if you tiptoe around too much, you're going to lose that tire temperature, and it kind of snowballs in the wrong direction. Conversely, if you can really lean on that tire and push it and load it, then, you know, you're going to get the benefits of that and finding the sweet spot of where the tire pressures come up and where the tire temperatures get into giving you that grip you're looking for. But Aaron Vogel is hanging here with Michael Dinan, so she's got a good run going here early in qualifying.
Talked to her co-driver Michael Cooper, who is from this part of the country. That was awfully close there, exiting turn 11 onto the pit straight for Aaron. But they had a big test here. The whole DXDT team did after Road America, and Michael told me it was a really successful test. They felt quite strong coming into the weekend. They've been mid-pack in the practice sessions as Fred Portad goes around. That's the Wright Motorsports team, I believe, watching on. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's just really slick there. We saw Michael Dinan have the issue on his second lap. Maybe Fred's lap possibly, but just coming in. He was kind of tiptoeing, and you can just see there, once you start to load that right-hand side, there's not much grip to work with, and you're transitioning very quickly there. Michael, as we saw, elected to ride out a little bit, go straight once he felt the car start to slide a little bit. But with that steering input, you're going to have a quick spin. Got away with one.
In each of our 3 classes, Pro, Pro-Am, and Am, the championship leaders in their respective classes have pretty big leads coming into this weekend, but it's really tight second on back, especially in Pro and Pro-Am. Just a couple of cars in Am, and one that just joined the championship last time out at Elkhart Lake. But that could be fun to watch as those points battles continue throughout the course of this weekend. And as you talked about, Calvin, qualifying so crucial. If you don't have a good qualifying session, you're going to be on the back foot in the race. Yes, you can make your way forward around this racetrack, but that's a challenge you would rather avoid, if at all possible, with a solid qualifying effort.
It is, and this is a car on a team that's struggling a little bit, quite honestly. I mean, K-Pack won the championship with the number 3 car, but their sister car here with Venturini behind the wheel right now, they've really been struggling with the car all summer long. It really dates back to VIR early in the championship season, and they just can't put their finger on it. They had a test here, as a number of teams did, following the Road America rounds, and they even put Jordan Pepper, who drives the 3 car, on board that number 6, and he said there is definitely something wrong with that car. So they're trying to get to the bottom. I was talking to some of the team members yesterday. They said there's something in the steering. It just finds a little bit numb, and you haven't used a lot more steering input to get the car through the corner. When you've got more steering input in a car, what that then means is coming off the corner, you're going to have a problem on the opposite end because you've got too much steering input, and then it will just snap on you. So not a good place to be, and for a team like K-Pax to be scratching their heads so far, it's that's racing. Sometimes it's a bit of a mystery, and they've certainly been through everything from the differential and the steering and shocks and everything that you'd think could be the problem. The car has not had a big hit. They had a little incident in practice sessions. We see 91 car there of Jeff Burton has had a quick spin. That's coming out of the boot, I believe, up in turn 9. He was close to the wall. I'm not sure if he grazed it or not.
To tell, he was pulling away, which was good to see. But to your point about K-Pax, it is so strange to see the one car excelling, leading the championship by 46 points. The second car has put together some podium runs since then, but is 46 points in arrears in the championship and only has the 1 win to their credit. There's Jeff Burton still stranded, never could quite get extricated from that situation. And we'll see if a safety vehicle needs to intervene here with 7.5 minutes to go. That could have some implications here with Jordan Pepper right now fastest ahead of Michael Dinan, and then Russell Ward, the Windward Racing Mercedes, which we were looking at a few moments ago. That's all been bumped down a little bit because Corey Lewis just responded in the Lamborghini we've been talking about. He jumped up to 3rd right now behind Dinan. Jeff Burton still stuck there in the run from the exit of the boot to turn 10.
He's putting it all out there. Jordan Pepper there through turn 10. You can see those painted curbs with the water sitting on there. So I think the team is saying, and he's seen that car stranded, how much more green flag time are we going to have? So he's going to be putting it on the line right now to try and maintain that top position as his teammate Andrea Caldarelli looks on.
And there is the red flag on our timing and scoring. There you see it on the screen as well for the stranded car of Jeff Burton, who is 9th at the moment, 4th in Pro-Am. That's the Reardon Racing car that he shares with Vesko Kazarov. And we'll see how long this takes to retrieve those cars. I don't think it should be a lengthy intervention. There's the spin.
The lightest graze maybe on the left front fender. The wing just missed it, I think.
We saw him backing out, and now he stopped on the other side, I think, of the track. Yes, that is the case.
Sometimes it's really tricky to find reverse gear in these cars. It just doesn't want to cooperate at times.
And Calvin, turn 9, that's where he had the spin. It's not uncommon to see spins in that corner. It's pretty flat as you're coming out of there. There's no real camber to help you out. And you put the power down a bit too soon, especially in track conditions like this. And around you go. And we've seen that happen to the best over the years.
Yeah, and you've already corrected it, but obviously it's Corey Lewis behind the wheel, not Venturini. His teammate will take up 2nd round of qualifying here today. But right now 3rd, so you know, we're not close to optimum lap times. So we got mid-46. That's pretty good. I mean, I think we were in the 44s yesterday in practice, so probably about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds off the optimum time here. But as you can see, Lewis there in 3rd spot, but about 3 seconds down on his teammate.
Yeah, Jordan Pepper with the fastest so far, 1:46.6. So that is far and away the fastest lap we've seen so far. I'm not sure how many true flyers we've seen this early in the session, and there's not going to be a ton of time left to put in a new one after this red flag is lifted, assuming it gets done in time when you have to factor in the out lap and then you're on it right away.
Yeah, I think this could be game over in terms of lap times.
if that's the case, it's pretty good news for the Compass Racing crew. Michael DeMeo, who's back with that team after impressing in both of the previous rounds, I should say, that he's taken part in at VIR and Road America. He has the provisional Pro-Am class pole in 5th overall, ahead of Aaron Vogel and Taylor Hagler. Taylor picked up a win at Road America alongside Dakota Dickerson. It's Jacob Abel slotted in alongside her this weekend here at Watkins Glen, and Jacob making his Watkins Glen debut in any type of race car. Was impressive in practice 2 yesterday, showed some good pace. That Racer's Edge team is starting to find some form as the year has progressed.
Yeah, and the Actor has proven to be super competitive. We've seen it in years past, obviously, gain big wins, and it's well suited to this racetrack. So we see the 10 car now. This is Sweedler. They had a bit of an issue in the bronze practice session here yesterday. Bill went down at the inside of a GT4 car, I believe it was, down into turn 1, got major damage to the car, so it cost them a lot of practice time, so they're a bit on the back foot here for the weekend.
But it is good to have them joining the AF Corsa team in the AM ranks for the 2nd consecutive race weekend in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. JC Sada for the AF Corsa team provisionally on the AM class pole, 8th overall. We've got a look there at the Ian Lacey Racing Aston. Frank Gannett behind the wheel, and this is good news. Red flag lifted with 3 minutes to go.
It's going to be a 1-lap flyer.
Yep.
I mean, basically, time you get back around to the stripe here will be, you know, minute and 15 to go. So that'll be a checkered flag on the following lap. So it's go time.
We'll see who has what left in the tank, or is this actually the start of Q2? Because our timing screens just got wiped away, and we have a new 15 minutes, albeit it says Q1.
That's bizarre.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the verdict is on this. It's still saying that qualifying 1 drivers are behind the wheel. You see Vogel, Pourdad, Dynan. But we don't have our... No. The problem is we don't have the laps that were set previously. Those are not on the screen, so bear with us. It was a 1:46 and change that was set for the provisional poll a few moments ago. We'll have to keep an eye on what's going on with timing and scoring.
Yeah, essentially ignore the time at the top of the screen right now. I think everyone's going to be on getting back to the stripe and then 1 lap to make it happen.
Let's operate under that assumption and told otherwise, Calvin. I think that's the best plan we've got. There is the provisional pole sitter, Jordan Pepper. Rapid lap that he put in earlier. We'll see if that's good enough to stand. This outlap is crucial, though. You got to get everything up to temperature once again and then find the space that you're going to need to put in the optimum lap time.
Yeah, not fumbling over traffic is going to be the key component here, and Jordan's not in a great spot to do that. He's trying to find his way through this, slide it down. So this is turn 10, 2 corners from the finish of the lap. Now he's trying to back up a little bit. Aaron Vogel takes him back, so this is not ideal for Jordan Pepper to try and get this ball.
Well, the good news is he should be on the provisional pole as it stands. So of all of the drivers that need to put in a fast lap, he's probably less on that priority list, having already turned in a time nearly 3 seconds clear of the rest of the field. There's the teammate, Andrea Caldarelli, watching on. It'll be his turn next for K-Pax Racing. 50 seconds left in the session, so Calvin, like you said, just 1 flying lap. It's time to throw it all on the line here in track conditions that are less than ideal.
It is, so yeah, this is going to be interesting here, and I'm not sure if Jordan Pepper has enough of a gap. The advantage that he had over the field in similar conditions 5-10 minutes ago, he's going to get into catching this traffic, which is going to hurt his lap time. Now he's going around the outside, where it's a little bit damper there on the exit of the carousel, or the outer loop as we call it. Now you dive down into the laces. Really easy to make a mistake here. Fortunately, the track is relatively dry there. So he is on it, but how much is this lap been compromised already, and there's further traffic on the hill?
It didn't help him, certainly having to pass Aaron, and it didn't help Aaron either. It's amazing. With 14 cars, you'd think 2.37 miles would be plenty to find enough space, but inevitably, race car drivers end up squabbling over the same piece of territory.
Well, I think there's a bit of time on the clock to be patient, even though the clock is winding down rapidly. Oh, big twitch there as he turns into turn 9, coming out of the boot. I think you could have waited probably 20, 30 seconds and had a nice clean run in front of you and caught the racetrack at its driest moments.
All eyes here on Jordan Pepper, provisional pole sitter, coming around to complete the lap. And we'll start to see some times popping up, I believe. Michael Dinan there across the line. He has to navigate the AM Class AF Corsa car. Waiting for some updates from timing and scoring. Now we're seeing the previous lap times up there. Have there been some changes?
Well, yeah, Lewis
yes.
has jumped up to second ahead of Dinan, so these could be for real.
I think they are. We're seeing times a little bit closer. So Lewis now just over half a second behind Pepper. Dinan sliding in third, Russell Ward fourth. So it's pro class cars 1, 2, 3, 4. Then Aaron Vogel improving to get to fifth overall. The provisional pole in Pro-Am. Checkered flag flies. So that's the final flying lap for these cars now crossing the line. That was Jeff Burton, who sits 10th overall, 5th in Pro-Am. And look at the traffic here. These cars still with, I think, one, or are they done?
I think they're done.
They all took the checkered, okay. All right, so there you go. Looks like that should be the order then for race 1 of the weekend. Coming up later this afternoon, Jordan Pepper will lead his K-Pax Racing teammate Corey Lewis to the green flag, but still 0.6 of a second between those two cars. And that's kind of the story we were talking about early in the session, Calvin. Something not quite right with this number 6 chassis that the team is working to get to the bottom of, and that's been about the discrepancy consistently week in and week out.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Pepper's time there, he probably lost at least half a second, I would think, in terms of that traffic that he was going through at the beginning of the lap. So potentially more on the line there, but it doesn't matter. As a K-Pax sweep at the front row with that Lamborghini Huracan, Dinan got dropped down a spot. I think the big loser in that was Michael DeMeo. I think he had the fastest time in Pro-Am before that reset there, and Aaron Vogel stepping up to the plate. I just love how feisty she is, and when Pepper kind of went by her and tried to back her up to start that flying lap, she said, I'm not having any of it, went around the outside and laid down a really good lap.
But look how close it is in that group there, from Vogel down to DeMeo, so that is from 5th to 11th overall. Vogel's lap a 151.1, DeMeo a 151.4. So that entire chunk of cars there covered by less than half a second.
I know, it's crazy. Like 3.5 tenths between a bundle of cars. So that should really get tasty this afternoon when we get some green flag action in the race.
Now we will turn it over to the second driver in these two driver lineups to set the field for race 2 of the weekend coming up tomorrow. And for the Pro-Am cars, that means the higher rated driver will be jumping in. And we've seen a lot of speed from a number of these Pro-Am teams with the pros in the cars, able to mix it up with K-Pax and Turner and Windward throughout the course of the season. There are those results. And again, look how tight it is from 5th down to 11th, about 0.3 of a second, the difference.
Yeah, and we expect a more mixed-up session coming up with the pros aboard the Pro-Am entries. So look for Jan Halen, fastest man in both practice sessions yesterday. Can he take it to Caldarelli and Venturini and Foley in terms of grabbing that top spot? Nice run by Russell Ward there. Windward Racing continue to run at the front end of the pack. And Cal Grenier back as his teammate here this weekend.
Keep in mind, those two won a race overall earlier this year at VIR. Russell Ward typically paired with Philip Ellis. Philip on DTM duty for that Windward Racing team. They've got racing going on, it seems like, every weekend, many times multiple championships in a given weekend. And Philip had a decent qualifying this morning for the DTM race. Their teammate Lucas Auer also starting in the top 10 there in DTM. So miss having Philip here, but Grenier is a rapid driver. Done a lot of his racing in Europe as of late, but the Canadian has some single-seater experience up to Indy Lights here in the U.S. And looked right at home when he jumped in with the team back at VIR. We'll see if they can repeat some of that magic.
Yeah, he was super impressive. And Ryan Dial believes he's got a fast car underneath him. They really struggled at Road America, just could not get a handle on the car. He said the car was literally scary to drive. Spoke to him yesterday. They then came to a test here just a couple of days later and figured out what was going on. It's something with the setup on the race car just dramatically off, and once they corrected that, they're back in the ballpark. So you tend to have to retrace a lot of steps that you've been down on a path to try and fix a race car when it's handling so poorly, but expect them to be at the sharp end here this weekend.
These are the two DXDT Racing teammates. It's the silver car driven by Ryan Dial, Michael Cooper in the car that Aaron Vogel qualified on the class pole in Pro-Am just a few moments ago. That just swept around Dial here on the outlap as Q2 is underway, Calvin.
Yeah, and for Michael Cooper, he was born and raised in New York State, but he said his first race here was not until 2018, but he's grown to love the place very, very quickly, and this is another driver who's top of the tree in terms of his abilities, and great to see him having an opportunity here this year. Had a big win already under their belts, so I think the way that Aaron is performing this weekend with a great qualifying run here just a few moments ago, this car could be in good shape for big things today.
That should be a big boost to Michael, knowing that the two of them seem to like to go down the same route from an engineering perspective, a handling perspective. They like the same things. That's so helpful in a Pro-Am lineup when you're not forced to make serious compromises as the pro, and it's one of the reasons that pairing has worked so well. Michael actually told me, I've been coaching Erin basically since she started racing, and maybe I've eased her down the same path that I like to get her to like the same things, and it's paying some dividends.
Yes, and I think she just seems to be very well suited to this GT3 machine. We make a move from GT4, ran with the Flying Lizard group yesterday, last year in a McLaren. So again, was teamed with Michael, so the chemistry is there as teammates, and I think you're spot on. I mean, so often with the Pro-Am pairing, the pros haven't, as you said, compromised the setup, whereas the AM is not as comfortable with the car being maybe a little bit edgy, a little bit more nervous, maybe a little bit more loose on entry to a corner, handling sensation that a pro can deal with very easily, yet for an AM they don't have the experience and the confidence in the race car. So the fact they like a similar car is really going to pay dividends throughout the course of the rest of this season.
11 cars have made it out so far to at least start an out lap. We have several starting their first flying laps, and let's keep our eyes on Michael Cooper as he enters the inner loop or the bus stop. Take your pick, whichever name you prefer. And Michael is on his first flyer of this session.
Track looks much drier there. You can see you could roll speed through the bus stop, as we're going to call it, the inner loop there. That was after Tommy Kendall's big wreck here in the Chevrolet Intrepid many years ago.
And there were a couple that prompted that change. J.D. McDuffie's fatal crash in a NASCAR race in 1991, I think, also played a factor into that. But as we watch Michael Cooper here on the racetrack, let's head down to the pits. Amanda Busick is caught up with the pole sitter for race 1.
When we talk about what to keep our eyes on, according to Jordan Pepper, keep an eye on the shadows on that track from the tree overhangs. Jordan, I know you said that the track was a bit tricky. What feedback could you get to Andrea ahead of this qualifying effort for him?
The thing with these Pirelli tires, especially when we come out of a nice hot oven on a damp track, you want to keep as much temperature as possible. And the only thing I could really do is just share the information where he can risk it, where he cannot, to keep the tire temp. And I think that's just about it. You know, the track's going to evolve. It was ever evolving for us already, but I just let him know where it was very tricky, where to watch out for, and where he can attack. So let's see what he can do. He's best in the business out there now. We secured 1 pole for the day, which is awesome. A 1-2 for the team, which is amazing after Road America. So yeah, we're back, and we're not going to let go, and we're going to give it a fight to the end for sure.
We're back, says Jordan Pepper. That's a scary thought for the rest of the paddock, because this has been the dominant car all season from the very opening round at Sonoma.
It has, but we've seen that they're vulnerable too. So, I mean, that's what's been exciting. I mean, when you saw the lineup and the fact that K-Pax was coming back full-time in the pro ranks here in North America, you were like, well, is there going to be any competition? But we've certainly seen it from Winward. We talked about their big win at VIR with Turner Motorsports grabbing a win at North America. So they are threatened, and they know they've got to be on top of their game. They can't be short in the gear, otherwise they will not be winning races.
Big lap a moment ago from Robbie Foley to jump to the top, a 146.1 that has him on provisional pole by 0.7 of a second over Giacomo Altoe. This is Robbie Foley, a race winner with Michael Dinan in race 2 at Elkhart Lake just a few weeks back. And Robbie Foley showing the confidence we expected we'd see from him and this race team at a track that has been kind to them already this year.
Yeah, coming off a big win in the 6 hour here at the GLEN a couple of months ago. So up on the wheel early. So his lap time there, I believe, is about half a second quicker than Jordan Pepper laid down in that first session.
And Michael Cooper here just put in a purple sector 2, which means fastest sector 2 we've seen thus far in Q2. And he is on pace to challenge Foley for the pole if he can put this final corner together. Up to the safer barrier at the exit of turn 11 and across the start-finish line. What can Michael Cooper do? He jumps to P1 overall, and of course in Pro-Am. Foley down to second, Altaway to third, and as that happens, here's Ryan Dial. It shows David Askew behind the wheel, but it is Dial piloting the second DXDT car. They now sit 1-2 at the top of timing and scoring. Yeah,
and there's a pretty good lap here for Robbie Foley. Fastest in sector 1, just a 10th off of Cooper's middle sector, which should certainly suit Mercedes a bit more than this BMW. This could shoot him to the top here momentarily.
He was there just a few moments ago, only to get pipped by his friend Michael Cooper. Does Foley improve? Yes, he does. 1:45.345. And there it goes officially to the top of the charts. Now Andrea Caldarelli with a big lap. He is 3/10 off of Foley's time, moves him up to second, bumping Cooper down to third and Altaway to fourth. Ryan Dial currently fifth, and Drew Stavely with the Ian Lacey Racing Aston Martin looking strong once again. He is seventh. Mikel Grenier just went to P1.
Yeah, it's ever evolving. The laps are going to get quicker and quicker as this racetrack dries out. So typically I'd say about 5 laps you're starting to peak in terms of performance of the tire. But here today, I think the offset is going to be the racetrack is going to continue to give you more grip, more speed, and better lap time. So it could literally be the last of these front-running cars that gets that last lap before we get the checkered flag out there. So if you're out early, guess what? There might be someone who's still going to complete their flying lap at the racetrack a little bit drier and could give them the edge.
Race 1 pole-sitting car right here with Andrea Caldarelli now piloting this K-Pax Racing Lamborghini, the number 3, currently 4th, but nipping at the heels with a solid first sector. We'll see what he can put together. One story to quickly clean up. We saw the issue for Jeff Burton in the first qualifying session, and Vesko Kozarov did do an outlap, but has come right back to the pits and does not have a representative lap time. So that's one thing to keep an eye on there if there's a potential problem for Reardon Racing. What are you seeing from Andrea here, Calvin?
Well, he's certainly pushing. Cars sort of gave up on him a little bit there in terms of the amount of grip with a little bit of a damp racetrack coming up through turn 9. See, the water spray is not as aggressive as we saw when Pepper was skirting that curbing coming out of turn 10.
Caldarelli jumps to the top spot there. Doesn't have a single best sector, but you throw it all together, and it's good enough to go to the provisional pole by 2/10 of a second over Mikel Grenier for Windward Racing. Turner now back to third with Robbie Foley, then Jan Heylen. Still waiting to see some of the strength out of that Porsche that was exhibited through 2 practice sessions yesterday that Jan topped in both instances, but he's back down in 4th. I think there might be a little bit more in that car.
Yeah, there's Chris Ward. He's got a slight wry smile on his face as he's looking at the board and sees one of his Lamborghinis. He's the Lamborghini North America manager here, so certainly he's had a lot of success. So many of these Lambos out in the global GT3 world and have had a ton of success. Liking what he's seeing.
Chris telling us at Sonoma that every Evo version of the Huracan in North America is being raced somewhere this season, which is amazing. Oftentimes they end up in collectors' hands or do track days, but aren't seen in professional racing. But the demand was so high that many of those that fell into those circumstances were bought up by race teams or drivers who wanted to go racing, and we see so many of them on the grid. The platform has proven to be so successful. This is the Canadian Mikel Grenier slotted back in alongside Russell Ward for Windward Racing. Winners at VIR, and a nice lap in the making here for the Canadian.
He's got a good run going. Foley just set a purple first sector. The middle sector of the BMW's down a little bit, but he needs a rebound right now. He's 7th overall, 3rd in Pro. Not quite there, 45.2 for Foley.
The car at the back of the shot, that looked like a wild slide there for Giovanni Venturini. That's the Green K-Pax Racing number 6 that we've talked about the struggles they've had, and they're carrying over a little bit here. Currently down in 8th overall, 4th in class in the 4-car pro class. There is Grenier, does improve, and is now 3rd on the leaderboard, 144.974.
Yeah, it's getting tight at the top for sure.
Now last lap there for Mikel Caldarelli with the fastest, a 144.729. First through 3rd, separated by 0.2 of a second. With still 4 minutes left in qualifying. Here comes Jan Heylen, right on cue. He goes to the top.
Yeah, I mean, it looked ominous, didn't it? Looking at those practice times from yesterday, and just showed a great degree of patience in terms of when to release the car, getting those Pirelli P0s up into their sweet spot, but still 4 minutes to go. A lot could change here.
An extraordinarily capable team, Wright Motorsports, with a ton of experience here at Watkins Glen in a number of championships. And Jan Heylen, plenty of experience to bring to the table as well. He and Fred Pordad have been so consistent. They've not finished off the podium in class all season long. Won back at Sonoma, but then had to wait until the last couple of races there at Road America to get their 2nd win of the season, and they would anxiously like to win yet again here this weekend.
Caldarelli down a little bit on his personal best through the 1st and 2nd sections. I'm not sure if he's going to improve here or not. He flashes across the line. No, a little bit off. So I think that was just get it back in the groove and let's go again here. Top 7 is separated by just 0.7 of a second right now.
Amazingly tight between cars and manufacturers and teams. Got an update from Amanda that the Reardon car has a power steering issue stemming from Jeff Burton's spin and light wall contact in Q1.
I think I saw Burton actually get out at the end of that first session as well, so he may have just told Vesco, the car doesn't feel right, go out and see if you can identify what is exactly wrong.
England clearly is backed up in the 2nd sector of this lap, over 7 seconds off the pace, so probably doing what you were saying there, Calvin, just getting some space, temperatures bringing them back down, and try to go for one more lap. It looks like Windward might be content with the time set already by Mikel Grenier. He's already in the pits. And here is Compass. Michael DeMeo looked like he might be in store for class pole in Q1 earlier, but here in the 2nd qualifying session, this is Matt McMurray. And Matt, 4th right now in Pro-Am, 8th overall.
Talking to Matt yesterday had a quick chat with him in the paddock, and he's pretty excited about this program. He now actually works for HPD. He did an internship back in the summer of 2019, but he's now actually on board there, so pretty cool story, working in their vehicle dynamics department there. So he's been doing that since October last year, so fully ingrained with the brand and the race cars, and boy, can he get the job done. Had a couple of championships over the last couple of seasons, so a young man. We talked about being the youngest driver at Le Mans many years ago. He certainly developed nicely.
Matriculated from the University of California, Irvine, with an aerospace engineering degree. Goes to show what kind of head he has on his shoulders. Pretty good race car driver as well, and as you said, intimately familiar with HPD and its associated products. Here's Ryan Dial once again, down in 7th. What does Ryan have left in the tank? First 2 sectors aren't showing any improvement for the Scot, but still 54 seconds left on the clock. If he comes around, he should have enough time for one last flying lap to try and improve his fortune.
Right now, the top Mercedes on the grid is Mikel Grenier, who we noticed had already parked it for the session, so he's trying to save tires a little bit for the race conditions. Caldarelli, this will be his final lap. You can see 30 seconds left on the board. He's not going to beat that in terms of getting back to the stripe, I don't believe.
Kind of like to see 4 different manufacturers in the top 5. Porsche, Lamborghini, Mercedes, and BMW. the four I mentioned. Here's Caldarelli, though. Look at that second sector. That's got him on the pace to challenge Jan Heylen now. And with the clock about to tick down to all zeros, this is his last chance. Can he knock the Belgian off the pole?
Yeah, he needs to find literally 0.04 of a second over his previous best to improve and grab that spot. It'll be total commitment right now. This racetrack's as dry as it's been, obviously, all morning long. So total commitment here, and this is one where you really have to brave it out, play chicken with that wall.
Lamborghini factory ace Andrea Caldarelli onto the front straightaway, takes the checkered flag and goes fastest. 1:44.628. K-Pax Racing sweeps the poles, at least for now. Still a couple of drivers still on flying laps. Michael Cooper had a personal best first sector. That could be one car to keep an eye on. And Jan Heylen, I don't think
he's up to speed.
No, he's not.
No, it wasn't there. First sector was a couple of tenths down, so that should secure it for Caldarelli right when it counted. So he went from 400s behind to 600s in front.
I think Cooper's the last one we need to keep an eye on. Here he comes, high commitment turn. This left-hander, that is turn 10. Similarly high commitment here in turn 11. There's a lot of corners that fall into that category. He's right there flirting with pole time. What kind of third sector can Michael Cooper put together? Does not jump to the top. In fact, does not improve.
Oh, McMurray jumps up there.
Look
nice
at
lap.
that.
4th overall, 2nd in Pro-Am.
Demotes Cooper down to 3rd in Pro-Am, 5th in the overall order.
We talked about the diversity of the manufacturers. There's Lamborghini from Porsche, from Mercedes-AMG, from Acura.
And another Mercedes, then the BMW of Turner. Going to be scratching their heads a little bit. Dynan showed some decent pace in Q1, and Foley down in 6th. Comes as a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, he got up to speed quickly, so I'm not sure if they just went over-aggressive on the tire pressures and maybe it'll be a short session with some incidents, so kind of put all their eggs in one basket there in terms of determining maybe it'll be in that opening 5-10 minutes where the times would be set, but it seemed like he's struggling in the middle sector. That was where he's losing the time. First sector, as we expect with the BMW with the straightaway, that's incorporated there up towards the inner loop, the bus stop. Was always going to be their favored sector, but sector 2 he seemed to be getting slower through there, so I wonder if there was an imbalance in the car and he was just overworking the tires a little bit.
And for Jan Heylen, no shame in the class pole in Pro-Am, but he was so close to the overall pole, wasn't he? And looked like it was headed that direction until the final moments when Caldarelli jumped to the top.
He'll be disappointed.
I think so too.
He won't be jumping up and down with the Pro-Am pole. He'll be disappointed not to have the overall pole.
61 thousandths of a second, the difference between first and second. Then you got to go back about 3/10 to find Grenier in 3rd. Pretty tight though after that, with 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th all within, well, we'll say less than 1/10 of a second. Very, very tight in the midfield, as we've come to expect. Here are the final results, and you can see the numbers right there, just how tight it is from McMurray on back to Dial.
Yeah, Dial will be thinking, where were 500s? That would put me from 8th on the grid all the way up to 4th.
And small margins, no question about that. Interesting results thus far in qualifying and shaping up to be some interesting races too. What are you looking for when we go racing a bit later on today?
Well, I think for Caldarelli and Pepper, they'd love to kind of consolidate that championship lead, take the pressure off moving forward as we head to Sebring next, and obviously the 8-hour Indy. And I think if they can have a solid weekend here, follow up with Sebring, the championship may be in the bag before they get to the 8-hour, and then they can focus on that 8-hour rather than worrying about points here in the North American Championship.
It would definitely simplify some of the calculations they're trying to make as far as driver lineups are concerned, but that's a story for another day as we take a look at the highlights here from qualifying. Racing, I think, will be a team to keep an eye on. They've been nipping at the heels pretty consistently of the K-Pax team throughout the course of the season. This is the SRO Motorsports Porsche. Look at the spin here from Fred Portan. You can tell, we just saw what the shot of the track looked like a few minutes ago, and just how much more damp it was in the first qualifying session.
Yeah, we talked about the last lap fly. That's what it took from Andrea Caldarelli there, kind of skirting the edges of the racetrack through that final corner, up close to the safety barrier there, but enough to just Pip Halen for the pole. Nice lap there by Andrea.
Was impressive indeed. And looks like some problems there. This is the Reardon Racing car that we talked about. Ultimately, Vesko Kozarov wasn't able to get out. Amanda did report they had a bit of a fluid leak they were dealing with as well. So qualifying complete. K-Pax will lead the field to green in both races and well on their way to putting that championship firmer within their grasp. The number 3 car all season long, Caldarelli and Pepper, have been difficult to dislodge. Road America was a tough weekend, but as Jordan said, we are back. And I think they put the field on notice with what they did in qualifying.
Yeah, I think when you give these drivers, I mean, they learn racetracks very quickly, but for the majority of the team with Caldarelli, Venturini, and Pepper, most of these circuits are brand new to them, but when they have a test session like they did and then follow it up with a good day here yesterday, you're going to have the results that we're looking at the end of the day. Qualifying
is complete. Race 1 of the weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, coming with live streaming coverage at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope you join us for that. A full day of SRO America action as well coming your way on GT World. For Amanda Busick in the pit lane and Calvin Fish, I'm Ryan Marine. So long for now from Watkins Glen.